started. What's up, everyone? I'm going to talk some Phil Collins today. I was talking with Aaron earlier, and I said, man, have I done a Phil Collins video, really? I thought, well, I did In the Air Tonight as my number one in my top 20 drum fills of all time. I had that in there, and I was thinking, like, I'm not sure that I've done any Phil Collins songs. So the first song that came to mind is this song we're going to talk about today. And I was thinking about, it's just an odd song, but it sounds so normal that you think it's, you don't think it's strange, but it just has some really weird moves that Phil, who was at the time kind of incapable of not writing a hit song, everything that he wrote became massive hits in the 80s, right? So this one starts out and you think, okay, yeah, this is kind of normal, but then it's like, wait, what? Okay, so let's check it out. Oh, by the way, before I start, since this is Labor Day here in the US, I have a Labor Day sale going on. $99 for all my educational products. If you want to get better at music, improve your ear, because this is going to be an ear training thing right here. Improve your theory knowledge, because we're going to be talking a little bit about theory, about why this is what about this, like how do you do the analysis of this? How do you understand kind of what the chord progressions are with this and how the melody works with it? My Beato Ear Training method is part of the sale. $99 for that and this thing. There's 80 videos, hundreds of interactive training modules, and a 27-page PDF. My Beato Book Interactive, which is my theory course, that has video lessons, video lectures, audio examples of everything in it. It's been completely revamped. And my Quick Lessons Pro guitar course, which has 5 hours of video content, music notation and tabs, and PDFs for every lesson, along with Guitar Pro files. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, let's check this out. So it starts, you know this song. This is Against All Odds. Okay, let's just get a reference point for where we are in the beginning. So it starts out, when you hear it, you're like, so it's really like a 2-5 in the key of D flat. Starts at E flat minor, kind of a weird chord, weird key to start in, but it's for the voice, you know. Then E flat minor. How can I just let you walk away? Just let you leave without a trace. Okay, so right there it's weird. You hear it and you're like, okay, all right, yeah, it's cool. When it goes to the B flat minor chord, you're expecting it to go 2, 5, 1, but it goes 2, 5, 6. That's called a Deceptic Cadence, totally normal. But when you hear this C minor chord, that's way out in left field, that C minor 7 chord. And it's really unusual to start a song with a verse melody with these 2 minor 7th chords a step apart. Just weird. I always thought it was strange, but it sounds totally normal, right? Listen again. Just let you leave without a trace. When I stand here taking every breath with you. Ooh, you're the only one who really knew me at all. Okay, so then it starts to get back in the key of D flat. So it's like let me play along with the track, actually. How can I just let you walk away? Just let you leave without a trace. This is a very Phil. Love that. Okay, let me just talk about that. This is a type chord change here that it just, you never find this anymore, but it was very much of the 70s and 80s. So this is the 4 chord in the key of D flat, right? You hear that in Earth, Wind, and Fire, in any David Foster, any Jay Graydon production, any you hear it in all it was in the 80s pop music all over the place. And it was in Genesis. Genesis used this all the time. A lot of 70s progressive rock used this chord change. A lot of Yes songs. Frankly, Pat Metheny's songs used it. It was used in jazz, but you just don't hear it anymore. So it'd be the 4 chord to a second inversion, a third inversion dominant chord. That's really A7 over G flat. So it's an A or A flat 7 with the flat 7 in the bass. And that's a common chord to resolve back. F minor 7 to B flat minor 7. You're the only one. Then it goes 2 to 5. That's kind of normal. Okay, listen. Whoops. Repeats. How can you just walk away from me when all I can do is watch you leave? 'Cause we've shared the laughter and the pain and even shared the tears. You're the only one. Then we go to the sus. So take a look at me now. Okay. I love this. So he goes to a straight sus4. Now that's another thing that you just was very common in that time period, but doing a straight sus4 like that is really great. But then he doesn't change the bass note on the downbeat. Instead of going to the 1 chord, he stays with the 5th in the bass. This is weird, okay? But And what it does is it makes the beginning of the chorus sound deceptive. You don't realize that you're hitting the chorus, right? So A flat sus. Then the bass stays on A flat, right here. Here's the weird part. Okay, so what is going on there? So he's going from 2, 5 sus to the 1 chord with the 5th in bass, and then this is E flat 7 over A flat. So instead of that's really a secondary dominant chord, except he's doing a secondary dominant chord almost like Bach would do, where you've got a 5 over 1, but it's really 5 over it's 5 over the 5, right? It's a 5/7 of 5. So you got the 1 chord. It's similar to this other progression where you're going, instead of it going, but it's more of a creative way to do that. It's just it's very interesting, right? But you don't even notice it because the melody is so strong on it. Let's go back. Listen. I love this. Here it is. Then I love how he gives an extra bar for the huge fill. I wish I could just make you turn around and see me cry. There's so much I need to say to you, so many reasons why you're the only one. Then we go to sus, so only 1 verse. Chorus. And then the other thing that makes it where it's not mundane to me is the weird drum part here.
There's nothing left here to remind me.
What, I don't know why he plays those upbeat kicks there, but it's so weird. You don't notice it just because you're kind of just going along with it. He does these two weird upbeat kicks in his fill.
Empty space. There's nothing left here to remind me. Just a memory of your face. Now take a look at me now.
That whole thing there, all the drum fills are with all those upbeat kicks. It's just not what you would call. It's not what you would normally play in a pop ballad like that. It's so smart, and the arrangement is so good. It's Arif Martin did the arrangement or did the production on it. It's what Phil, being such a great drummer, he knew to put these things in there that take anything that people would take. It cuts down on the sweetness of it, kind of the saccharine, where it could almost get like that. And it has this intensity. I think that these weird upbeat kicks and the fills here act to throw the listener off a little bit, make it a little more mysterious. Listen again.
To remind me, just a memory of your face. Now take a look at me now.
He's just jamming.
There's just an empty space. But to wait for you is all I can do, and that's what I've gotta face. Take a good look at me now, 'cause I'll still be standing here, and you coming back to me is against all odds. It's the chance I've got.
The other thing is his vocal performance is unbelievable here.
All I can do, and that's what.
Somebody Rhymes with Carbon just wrote, nobody does pain like Phil. That is so right on. I love that. Nobody does pain like Phil. That's her voice. I think that because he's such a great drummer, that he knows how to just put that emotion into that, and he's played the fill. I mean, he's doing the vocal part later, but he knows how to place the vocal rhythmically in the right spot. That's the master of melancholy. That is, I love that. The master of melancholy. And what was the other one again? I just think that these are just perfect pop songs. This is, and when he hits this high note here, the distortion on his voice.
It's all I can do, and that's what I've gotta face. Take a good look at me now, 'cause I'll still be standing here.
And then,
And you coming back to me is against all odds. It's the chance I've gotta take.
great fill. Then,
Take a
I love
look
this.
at me now.
So he goes, so at the end, right, 2 to 5. Then the third time. I love that D flat sus2. Just the mu chord, Steely Dan, then 4, 5. Beautiful, right? But one of the things that Phil, being from playing in Genesis and having such a sophisticated knowledge of rhythm and of harmony, is makes his songs not just be predictable songs. I think that there's so much more interesting because just there's where he places the vocal rhythmically, his melody lines, how he where he decides to jump up and use distortion in his voice. It doesn't matter how, if the chord progression goes in some weird place, he just has such a natural sense of melody. He could not, it's really, he was at a time period where he just couldn't write a bad song. I remember talking to my really good friend Lee Sklar, who played with Phil back in the 80s. I remember asking Lee, I said, Lee, when Phil would come in with a new song that you're going to do, what was it like? Would he say, would you just listen to the songs and go, oh my God, here's another hit. And then he does another song. Oh my, this is another hit. It's like he was just, it's like aces every time, right? It was amazing. He owned, Kiss the Sky said he owned 80s radio, which he really did. And if you go back and listen to the first Genesis record that he was the lead singer on, which is Trick of the Tail, how sophisticated some of those songs were. I'm just incredibly sophisticated. Entangled, Squonk, Dance on a Volcano. What are some of the other ones? Absolutely one of my all-time favorite records. And then he does and then it gets into the 80s and he does a solo record, right? And then he starts having all these massive pop hits he did start having pop hits with Genesis around the Duke era, right? With Abacab, with what's the song I'm thinking of? It's in 70. Turn It On Again. So he started having those hit songs, but it wasn't until he did Ripples. Somebody said that was on that's one of my favorite songs of all time. Robbery, Assault, and Battery. All those songs off Trick of the Tail. Amazing songs. If you don't know Trick of the Tail by Genesis, came out in 1976. Not only is it one of the finest rock records of the 70s, but it's also one of the best produced. David Henschel, I think, was the producer on it. And it sounds as good as anything today. I mean, it's absolutely phenomenally good sounding. But when he hit the 80s doing all these solo songs, he just couldn't write a bad pop song. It was just hit after hit after hit after hit. And I just think this is brilliant, just the weird kind of things that he does. And the chord changes, though, these are really held over from Genesis. The Take a Look at Me Now. That's something Tony Banks would do, right? That's really like a Genesis kind of chord change right there that you would hear. There's a Bach Cantata Number 54 that I did it. I used it in a video that I did, What Makes Bach Great, a few years ago when I went to Leipzig. And this is one of my favorite Bach cantatas. You should definitely check out Cantata Number 54. And the opening chord is an F7 sus4 over E flat, which is nothing like anything in Bach's. It's a really cool suspension. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's basically this chord in a different key. So I just absolutely love that. Now, I want to say it again. I've got my Labor Day sale going on right now. You want to get your ear where you can figure out this stuff just right off the bat and hear what these chords are. You can get my Beato Ear Training Program, my Quick Lessons Pro Guitar Course, and my Beato Book Interactive. Okay, so you get the Beato Book's music theory. It teaches you what the chords are at each key, and it shows you when you're changing keys or you have secondary dominance like in this thing, and when you have inversions. My ear training course will teach you how to hear all these inversions, and you'll be able to pick out these notes that are different, where you've got the that E flat dominant 7th chord. Most people would just play, they would just play that. But that note, that 7th, is definitely in that chord voicing too. And it's really that's where the fine tuning of the ear becomes so crucial. That's what my ear training course will teach you. It'll teach you how to pick these things out on one listening, right? Where you can hear the chord changes and be like, okay, I know what this is. I mean, as soon as you hear it, when I hear that, I'm like, oh, that's a 2-5. Okay. I just automatically assume it's like 2-5. Well, what does that even mean? Well, in my Beato book, I explain what the diatonic chords are in the major key. It's really in the first part. It's like, how do you build triads? And what are the chords in a major key? And it starts out, the 1 chord is major, 2 chords minor, 3 chords minor, 4 chords major, 5 chords major, 6 chords minor, and the 7th chord is diminished, okay? So when I say a 2-5, I mean the 2 minor chord to the 5 major chord. So if I'm in the key of D flat, E flat minor or E flat minor 7 is the 2 chord, and A flat major is the 5 chord. Okay, so then once I know that, then I can make predictions. Like when this B flat minor 7 chord comes in as the first chord in the song, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's the 6th chord in that key. Okay, so we're cool. And then, oh, C minor 7, well, that's totally out of key. Where is that coming from? And this is where your ear development really shines. And this is why you should do ear training and learn these things, is to be able to pick out all the subtle differences like this. This teaches you how to play chords correctly. I'll just tell you a quick story here. So anyways, this is my Labor Day sale, $99 for everything that I sell. They're all educational products to make you a better musician. If you were thinking about getting anything, now is the time to get it. It goes through the weekend. I played it. I used to play gigs with a guy just for a short period of time. Friend of mine, and we have another mutual friend who actually connected us to do this. And I just did some cover gigs years ago. This is 25 years ago. And I said to my one buddy, I said, why is it that so-and-so plays every song wrong, right? So I sat in on bass, and I'm doing these cover gigs. I did about 10 gigs or so. And the guy whose gig it was, every single song that he played the wrong chord changes on. And it used to drive me nuts because I'm playing bass, and he's playing it. And I'm like, what are you playing there? That's not how it goes. Oh, really? And he's out there playing it, but he plays it like so confidently that it doesn't matter. And he sings all the lyrics wrong. So I said to my friend, I don't want to say it because I'm going to offend one of them. I said to my buddy that introduced me to him, that got me hooked up, I said, why is it that so-and-so plays every chord wrong? He's like, I don't know. I had to stop playing gigs with him because of that. He sings every lyric wrong and he plays every chord progression wrong. And to me, this was these are, you should be able to tell when you're playing a song. If you're playing this song here, you should be able to know, wait a minute, is that the right chord there? Now, granted, when you're going from this is D flat over A flat in the bass. So it's a D flat major chord with a 5th in the bass, right? And if you went to this chord, if I was playing that on a gig behind you, you wouldn't know that I'm not quite playing the right chord, that chord has the 7th. Now he's playing this on keyboard. That's not really the guitar, a guitar voicing, but this E flat 7 over A flat. But those subtleties, if I heard somebody playing the correct chord behind me, I would be like, yeah, wow, I'm hiring this dude again on the next gig. And this is how you get gigs, is by playing the stuff right. And those subtle things, to people that are professionals, if you're doing a cover gig and somebody knows those little things that are different, that's the difference between the pro players and the amateur players, really, is having that knowing those subtle changes. It's just like when I was playing on a jazz gig. If somebody played, oh, let's play All the Things You Are, and somebody goes, if they played that intro, I'd be like, they know the Charlie Parker intro. Okay, well, that informs me something about them as a musician, right? Or if I'm playing at the end of the song and they blow, just knowing to do a turnaround like that, I would know from that turnaround that the person would play, I would know what their level of sophistication was. And that would inform me on the types of tunes I could call on the gig, if that makes sense, right? That gives me the vocabulary, these nuances like that makes me know that they have the vocabulary to play certain songs. So I would adjust my set. If I'm playing with somebody on a pickup gig, I would adjust my set and say, oh, they'll know how to play this tune. And I would completely play different tunes that I would play if somebody does a different turnaround or something that's not really as sophisticated as that. So once again, this is why it's so important to develop your ear and develop your knowledge of what all these little specific things are, which is why I have my ear training course, my Beato Book music theory course, my quick lessons guitar course. You can get everything for $178 off this Labor Day weekend, $99. Most people sell one course for that much. I'm selling my 3 courses for that much. You want to support the channel and become a better musician? I say it every week. This is how you do it. This is how I can pay for doing these interviews I'm doing. I got some big interviews coming up. This is a way to support yourself as a musician, become a better musician, and it enables me to go out there and travel to places and interview people like I just did in Seattle with Chris Novoselic and Kim Thiel and Matt Cameron. And I did in Arizona when I went and interviewed Maynard from Tool. These are possible because of people supporting the channel this way. So that's just where it's at. And a lot of times these chord charts here, when I was growing up, they were almost always wrong. So I grew up at the time where no one ever trusted lead sheets like this. You just didn't. Everybody figured out stuff by ear, and your ability to figure out things informed musicians that you played with, that how good of a musician you were, right? So I prided myself on having a great ear and being able to figure out anything. That was kind of one of the things, and that's why I was able to progress in music, frankly, is having that. And it's not just figuring it out, it's remembering it. My first band practice that I did with, I remember this, my buddy Andy in high school, he gives me this tape in junior high. And the songs on the tape were like, he had what Zeppelin song was on it? It was What Is and What Should Never Be. And then he had the Triumph song, Bring It On Home. I don't know, it was the weirdest group of songs. Long Distance Runaround by Yes. Don't Take Me Alive, Steely Dan. It was the most off-the-wall thing for a first band practice for a 15-year-old guitar player. And I come in and his brother's like, I'm playing the Larry Carlton solo on Don't Take Me Alive. Little that I was, 50 years in the future, I'm interviewing Larry Carlton and we're talking about that opening chord there and the guitar solo in that. And it's really been amazing to be able to do this. But all those songs, learning Long Distance Run Around. But this kid's brother was like, how'd you learn all those things? I said, I just figured them out by ear. And that's the thing, is that you got to be able to do that. So anyways, Labor Day sale. If you're here in the U.S., it's Labor Day. If you're not in the U.S., there's a Labor Day sale. It goes through the weekend. $99 for all 3 of my courses. My ear training course, my Beato Book Music Theory Interactive course. And like I said, if you bought an old version of it and you haven't upgraded, you can still upgrade. And then the my Quick Lessons Pro Guitar course. You guys are the best. Got a little Phil Collins for you. I've been a long time. I'm glad I brought some Phil out here. I love Phil. I'd love to interview Phil sometime. Hopefully that's going to happen. You guys are the best. Have a great weekend, all right? We'll see you.